Hi everybody, thanks for joining me again. Just about to get started on a brand new project. Today I'm going to be drawing a Labrador Retriever, and I'm going to be using charcoal, and I'm going to do it on this 18 by 24 inch canvas. Should be a really fun project. I'm excited to get going on it, so let's get started. All right, so just real quick, I went ahead and laid out my grid on the canvas. Like I talked about in my previous video, I only draw the intersecting points. I don't like to draw the full line, but this grid system helps me to be able to scale my reference image up proportionally to the larger size. And I use a tape measure to measure out a few reference points to help me keep those proportions accurate. So here on my iPad, I have my reference image of this Labrador, and I'm going to start sketching that out on the canvas. So again, I'm going to jump to time lapse for this part. It takes a little bit of time, but it's really important. So I'm going to make sure I get it right. So here we go. All right, so I've got it all sketched out. Now you probably noticed on this one I started a little different than my last project. The last project I started with a base coat of charcoal powder. With this one I wanted to start with the sketch because I've got a lot of white area up here that I want it to remain white. So I didn't want to lay down a bunch of powder there because it doesn't erase completely, so I didn't want the residue left up there. But now I'm going to do basically the same thing. I'm going to take my dry sponge and I'm going to go in and blend it all and create a base layer. I'm also going to add some behind the dog to later on create some background. I'm going to have some reeds. Now I want to be careful not to do it too much because I don't want to lose my sketch that I just did. Paying real close attention to the fur and the direction that the fur is going in my reference image so that I can, any strokes that remain will have that directional look to it. I'm okay with this being just like the sketch, being kind of loose. We'll come back in and tighten things up later. All right, now with that portion blended, now I'm going to take my charcoal powder and sponge. I'm going to add a little bit of base to the background again for when I come back in later to do some habitat. That should do it for now. Okay, now I'm going to jump into the fun part. I'm going to take my kneaded eraser, go back in and start adding some highlights and some texture with the fur and show some details. All right, so I'm just about ready to spray it with acetone. But before I do that, I'm thinking I want to add just a hint of some trees in the background. So I'm going to do that first. I'm just going to take a dry sponge again, and it's already got enough buildup of charcoal powder on it. I think it'll probably do what I need it to. Put a little value in there. I'm going to leave it light down in the bottom. Give it a little bit of a feeling of kind of some mist. Lighter down in there. Might even have just a bit of it here, showing it. Trees coming through the background. Then I'm going to take my kneaded eraser again and just go through and cut into it a little bit. Just a little bit of a fill of branches and leaves. Maybe a little bit of light peeking through up in the higher boughs, limbs. Okay, so I think I'm good on the first layer now. I think we're ready to spray it. Ready for that exciting yet nerve-wracking stage. And so we're gonna get to that right now. Okay, so I got my spray bottle full of acetone. Now, one thing I learned the hard way is that I always want to top this off, fill it up to the very top with acetone before I start spraying, because I never know how much acetone each piece is going to take. And you don't want to run out in the middle and have to refill your bottle, because the time it takes to refill it, what you've got sprayed on here is going to dry and evaporate and seal, and then it won't move anymore. So yeah, top it off, be ready to go. Take a deep breath, cross your fingers, let's see what happens. Okay, I think that'll do it. Now again, I'll hit it with a clear coat of fixative spray, let it dry up, and then we'll start on the second coat of charcoal. Okay, I think we're ready to go on the second layer. It only takes a couple minutes to dry after the acetone and clear coat. So now I'm going to take some vine charcoal along with charcoal powder and my blending stump. And we're going to go in and apply the second layer of charcoal, darken the contrast, and yeah, that's what I'm going to do. I like to go through and hit the really dark areas with the vine charcoal. Lays it down a little thicker, a little quicker than using the blending stump as a brush and dipping it in the charcoal powder. But I do both. But if I have a big dark area that I want to lay down quick, then I use the vine charcoal. I really love this stage because it starts to give it so much more depth. Once I lay in some of these darker, heavier areas, I'll come back in with the blending stump and blend this that I'm laying down with the vine charcoal, and then add more with charcoal powder, using it as kind of like a paintbrush. Again, always paying attention to the direction of the fur and adjusting the angle that I'm holding holding the blending stump. Moving it in that same direction that those bristles of fur are going. It's getting a real heavy area in the nostril here. Use a vine charcoal to get it in there nice and dark. And then back to the blending stump. Blend it in, work some of those softer edges. Just lay in those heavy areas and come back and soften the edges a bit. Now with the two ends on this, sometimes if I lay down too much with the end that I'm dipping in the charcoal powder, and flip it around, take some of that off with the opposite end. And then don't forget, you can always come back in with a kneaded eraser as well. Pull some of that out. You don't see it affect that first layer that you sealed. You can definitely pull charcoal off the second layer. Okay, we're getting really close on this one. I actually went through, finished the second layer of charcoal, and then I sprayed it all again, hit it with acetone just a little bit, and then put another clear coat of fixative on it, and then went through and put a third layer of charcoal, which the third layer just hits some of the darker areas. I don't go over the entire thing, but just where I feel like it needs a little more contrast. Now I've sprayed it again. So sealed that third layer of charcoal. Now for the final step, I'm going to take a white charcoal pencil and go in and hit the highlights and just touch them up a little bit just to fine tune some of those lighter areas a little bit. So I'm going to go ahead and do that now. All right, now again, I'm going to be using my maul stick, just this rod here that helps me to steady my hand. I'm going to start with the eye. Just love hitting this highlight in the eye. Brings so much life to the subject. Give it a little bit more of a glassy look. It's always fun. Get the real bright highlights. Gives the nose more of a wet look. All right, I think it's done. I'm really happy with the way this one turned out. Of course, I'm gonna let it sit a day or two and then come back to it and just take another look and see if it needs any fine tuning or any little adjustments, but I'm really happy with how this one turned out. So thanks for watching. Be sure to subscribe to my channel and also go check out my website, joelpilcherart.com. I have a lot of prints available for purchase there. This one will be eventually. Got to get it photographed and ready for print, but go check it out, and I appreciate your support. Thanks again. See you next time.